This video will discuss antipsychotic drugs that are used to treat schizophrenia and the dopamine hypothesis of schizophrenia. So the drugs that are typically used to treat schizophrenia are called antipsychotic or neuroleptic drugs. There are two different classes of these antipsychotic or neuroleptic drugs. The first one is phenothiazines. So an example of phenothiazine would be chlorpromazine, sometimes called thorazine, and basically it does a very good job of relieving the positive symptoms of schizophrenia. So phenothiazines is one classification for antipsychotic drugs. The other category of antipsychotic drugs are butyrophenones. And this one of these would be haloperidol. So perhaps you've heard of these before in regards to antipsychotic medications. They improve symptoms over a month or more, but when the drug is stopped, the symptoms return. And we know that these drugs work by blocking dopamine. So, and a lot of times, one of the problems with people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia is they don't like the medications that they're taking. They don't feel the same when they're on the medications. And so that's why, a huge proportion of the homeless have schizophrenia because it's a difficult disease. It's hard to deal with someone who has schizophrenia. And so families get frustrated. They say, just take your medications. And when they, stop taking their medications time and time again, a lot of times the family abandons them and they end up on the streets. So this idea that these antipsychotics work by blocking dopamine synapses. So this leads us to the dopamine hypothesis of schizophrenia. And again, thinking about it, if those drugs are working by blocking dopamine synapses, that probably means that there's too much dopamine or excess activity at the dopamine synapses in certain areas of the brain. We think that dopamine turnover is higher in the brains of people who have schizophrenia, especially in the basal ganglia. We also know some more evidence for this is that drugs that increase or prolong dopamine activity at the synapse can mimic schizophrenia symptoms. For example, drugs like LSD, amphetamines, methamphetamine, cocaine, drugs that we'll talk about next week or in later videos. Now, research indicates that this increased activity might be specific to a certain type of receptor, the D2 receptor. So there's, to my knowledge, 5 different dopamine receptors, numbered D1 through D5. And this specific one, it seems as if people with schizophrenia actually have 2 times as many D2 receptors. And the greater number of these receptors is associated with a greater number of cognitive impairment, or greater amount of cognitive impairment.